Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about radon, and we'd like to thank Amber James for liking and sharing the podcast. In 1899, Pierre and Marie Curie found that gas from radium remained radioactive for a month, and the radioactive gas from uranium was finally called radon in 1923. And Marie Curie wasn't allowed to go to university when she was young in Warsaw because she was a woman, so she had to secretly attend schooling to get her education, which is interesting. And the Curies, they created the term radioactivity, and in 1903, Marie became the first woman to get the Nobel Prize, and she actually died from prolonged exposure to radiation from working with all these chemicals. And it's wild that her paperwork is kept in a lead-lined box because they're considered too dangerous to handle. Amazing, huh?
Yeah. What is radon?
So what's fascinating about radon is this is a gas that's being released from rock and soil underneath our homes, and it's building to potentially very dangerous levels in our houses, especially in the lower levels. It's odorless, it's tasteless. You absolutely don't know if you have a problem unless you test for it. And radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. And if you're a non-smoker, it's the number one reason you're going to get lung cancer is from exposure to radon.
So this is worldwide. Everybody should be tested for this.
Every home. If you're a homeowner, you should do a radon test. You should do a short.
This?
Yeah, amazing. It's actually amazing that they don't teach this even in schools. I think this is something that everybody should know. One day you're going to be a homeowner.
Right.
You really should test your home because it has such impact. Most of the experts are saying that there's probably about 20,000 lung cancer deaths a year just from radon exposure, and this is just from living in your home, which is pretty amazing. And it's fairly easy and not that expensive to get rid of these high levels. It's funny, the U.S. EPA, the Surgeon General, the American Lung Association, the American Medical Association, and the National Safety Council all recommend that everyone test their home for radon.
Wow.
In 1984, Stanley Watrous, this is a construction worker who worked at the Limerick nuclear power plant, and he walked in, he set off the radiation monitors, and what was wild is they hadn't even brought any of the nuclear material into it yet.
That's scary.
They were still building it. So they tested him, and they found out that his skin and clothes had so much radon from his house that it set off these monitors. So the EPA studied his home, and it led to the 1986 Indoor Air Quality Research Act.
That's good.
So, this is 1986, and they didn't realize how deadly radon was in our homes.
That's scary.
And now the EPA estimates that 1 in 15 homes has a dangerous level of radon in it.
Wow. When
you're testing for radon, it's measured in picocuries per liter of air, and picocuries were named after the Curies.
Right.
The national average of radon in the air outside is 0.4 picocuries, and the EPA says that the average indoor radon level is about 1.3.
Okay.
The Radon Act 51 was passed by Congress, and it's setting the target indoor radon level to be 0.4 picocuries. And then they also set the level of 4 as the level that radon needs to be reduced in a home for safety.
Okay.
So the World Health Organization recommends that home levels be under 2.7, and scientists are saying that there's no safe level. So they want you to get these levels as low as possible in your homes. And newer studies are suggesting that children are much more sensitive to radon exposure, and so they're saying that it's very important that if you have children in your home that you do a test for radon levels.
Right.
So the level of radon in your home really depends on the type of soil and rock you have in your neighborhood. And the levels are going to vary all around the country. And what's wild is they can even vary in a neighborhood. So you can have a completely different radon level than your next door neighbor.
Wow.
So this radon gas is entering your house through cracks and joints in your foundation, and it can pass through drywall, concrete block, paneling. It's going to go through most insulations. And the radon is going to have the highest levels in the lowest level of your home, so basements and crawl spaces.
So, but even if you have like a ranch-style house, this is still a problem, right?
Absolutely, yeah. On a ranch style, then it's going to be your main living space where you're going to have the biggest problem. Drinking water can also have radon. So if you get your drinking water from a public source that comes from either a lake or a river, most of that radon is just released naturally into the air.
Okay.
But if your water comes from an underground well, it should be tested. And then if you have your own private well, you should test it. And then you can add granular activated carbon filters, and that helps remove most of the radon. But you have to make sure that you're diligent with changing that filter, because then that can build up radon in the filter.
Okay.
You can purchase short or long-term tests, and the radon levels are actually going to vary depending on the weather conditions, whether you're using the furnace or a fireplace. If you're opening windows, there's a lot of variations.
Because it's generally higher in the winter, right?
Right. So if you're using your heat, it's generally going to put more pressure on the slab and draw more radon into the house, or wind.
Not
it creates
good.
yeah, pretty amazing. So pros are recommending that you do a short-term test first, followed by a long-term test to get a nice average. You can also get monitors that are continuous, so these are plug-in or battery operated that would be working throughout the year. The EPA recommends that the first short-term test is done in the lowest level in a lived-in area. You want to keep the windows and doors closed as much as possible during the 2 or 3 day test, and then don't do the test if there's storms or high winds predicted during that period, because again, that puts different pressure on the house. It's going to draw more radon into the house from the slab. So long-term tests are considered 91 days to a year, and the longer the test, the more accurate it's going to be because of the fluctuations throughout the year.
Right.
The short-term tests that you pick up either online or at the hardware store, look at them, because some include the price of sending this to the lab, and then some of them require a $40 additional fee.
Right, so make sure you read the label.
Yeah, substantial difference. And there's a few different types of kits. Some are activated charcoal that absorb this radon, and you have to be very exact when you're performing the test so that you're getting accurate results. You don't want to open the sealed kit till you're ready to do the test, and the EPA standards require that the house is sealed up for 12 hours before the test. You don't want to have any open windows or doors. You don't want the fireplace flue open. You want to have the kit 20 inches or more above the floor in an area that's not going to be disturbed. You want to keep this away from windows, vents, out of direct sunlight, away from high heat and moisture. And then if it's a 48-hour test, they require that it's sealed up immediately and gotten to the lab or put in the mail within 24 hours. And like the 48-hour kits, they're invalid if you leave it out for 96 hours or more.
Wow.
So you have to make sure that you're reading the label.
Right, and follow the instructions.
Right. Some of these are going to have a self-addressed stamped envelope for the results, which they'll mail to you, or some companies will send you an email notification, or they'll give you a website link and a number where you can then get the results. If you're selling a house, some counties require that you do a radon test, and usually with real estate transactions, you're going to do 2 test kits 4 inches apart on the lowest living level of the house, and that way when you send it in, they're going to look at an average between those 2 tests for your level. With the long-term kits, they're going to be the most accurate estimate of your radon exposure in your home. And the long-term kit, you can get charcoal or these diffusion-based track detectors. So alpha track detectors have this special detector, and they call it a foil. And this is getting hit by the alpha particles of radon as it decays, and it causes these tracks on the surface of the foil. When the lab chemically treats it, it shows the trails of all this radon in your house, and then a computer is going to calculate the level of radon in your house.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, fascinating how some of these tests work. And with these continuous radon detectors, they work similar to a CO detector. So a CO detector analyzes the slow buildup of carbon monoxide in your home, and this is very similar to the radon testers that are on continuously. And it's either going to give you an alarm or it's going to show an LED readout of the level of radon. Some of the top-rated radon testers are from AccuStar, RA Data, RSSI, First Alert, ProLab, and Kidda. Safety Siren Pro has a continuous radon detector, and you can do short or long tests. You can either do a short test, 24 hours, up to 5 years.
Wow, that's a long
get
test.
a nice average. And AirThings has a continuous radon monitor that also does short and long-term tests.
You didn't spell any of those companies.
Kidda, Kidde.
Thank you.
Kidde. You wouldn't
I'm saying it's helpful when
you
you
wouldn't
spell.
think it'd be Kidda.
Right, but I'm saying it's helpful when you spell.
If you do have elevated levels of radon, you should install some
Well,
type.
you should just move.
You should, a tent outside. It's the lowest levels of radon you're going to get. But you want a system that's going to draw up and out this radon from your house. The target indoor level is 0.4 picocuries.
Okay.
And the EPA says some radon mitigation systems can reduce radon up to 99%.
Well, that's great.
The system you're going to install is going to depend on your home's construction, and you're either going to have a basement or a slab on grade or a combination of the two, or you're going to have a crawl space.
Okay.
And if you have a slab construction and a sump pit in your home, many of the do-it-yourself systems have great results just by adding a sealed lid to your pit, and then you're drawing this radon from below the concrete slab out through either a 3 or a 4-inch PVC pipe with an exhaust fan. Mm-hmm. And so this fan is creating a vacuum under your slab, and it's drawing the radon up and out of the house, so no underground gas is getting into your home.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, just amazing. It's called sub-slab depressurization, and they say it's one of the most effective ways to get rid of radon in your house.
Well, that's how this whole episode got started. We were doing a video at my cousin's house with his sub pump.
Right.
And I saw the extra tube,
pipe.
Yeah, coming out of there. I'm like, what is that for? You know, I understand.
Why two discharge pipes?
Right, yeah. And so you're like, oh, it's radon. I'm like, well, what is it? And we're both kind of like, we don't really know, which is kind of scary since we're hardware people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is amazing how...
So how does the average homeowner know what it is? And how would you know if the fan goes out?
They have a monitor, so you're going to have, it almost looks like a thermometer. It's a U-shaped thermometer-looking device, and that lets you know that there's a vacuum underneath the slab. And then some of them have alarms that'll go off when the fan stops.
But this is something you should look at?
This is another monthly routine that you should be looking at. And, this is something that has to be on 24 hours a day. So if you have a home with a sump pit, this is an easy way for radon to get into your house from the drain tiles around the foundation. So you want to cover that and seal it. So you want a sealed cover on your sump pit.
Right.
And if you want to create your own radon mitigation system with your existing sump pump, you can get a sealed radon mitigation lid. And this is going to have a hole for your discharge pipe from your sump pump. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be another hole for your 3 or 4-inch Schedule 40 PVC pipe. Most pros recommend 4-inch pipe.
Which is huge.
Yeah, it's a big pipe. And you're going to draw out radon from underneath your concrete slab. And you want gaskets around the pipes and the bottom of this cover so it's sealed. You can also just caulk it in place. And you need to get the radon up this pipe and to the outside of the house. You generally want it above the roof line. It needs to be higher than 10 feet above ground level for most applications. 10 feet away from windows, doors, and any openings in the house. And one way is to go up and into an attached garage, then up and into the attic, and then through the roof.
Right.
And you want your exhaust fan either in the garage or the attic if possible. It's going to connect to the PVC pipe with rubber couplings. Mm-hmm. So they don't want it in the living space in case there's ever a leak in these couplings. They want it outside. And they don't want it in the crawl space either, because the PVC pipe, you're going to solvent weld it with glue, so that's not going to leak. And then if you're in a cold climate, you want to make sure that any pipe that's either in the garage or the attic space is insulated to prevent condensation. And then if you're going through walls between the house and the garage or ceilings, you want to make sure that you're using a fire collar. So this is a fire barrier that you put around the PVC pipe. And if you ever had a fire, this is going to melt, and as the PVC pipe melts, the collar is going to release a material that's going to block the hole to slow the fire. Another way you can vent this is have the pipe straight out the side of the house and then up along the house, just like a downspout would be, to a point above the roof line, and then you would want to have an exterior rated exhaust fan outside.
Okay.
If you don't have a sump pump pit and you have slab construction, you can bore a 4-inch hole through the concrete.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah, because it's usually about 4 inches thick. And that way you're going to run your PVC pipe into this hole. And most homes, if it's the 1970s or newer, you're going to have gravel below the slab. So it makes it easy to draw this gas that builds up under the slab and vent it up and out. If your slab doesn't have a few inches of gravel, you're going to need to reach in or use an auger. And you're going to create a pit about 2 feet wide and about 2 feet deep. And this is going to collect gas that you're going to vent out.
Wow.
When you're creating this hole for your pipe, this is a nice time to rent like a heavy-duty drill and a concrete bit, because some of these bits, like a 4-inch boring bit through concrete.
Yeah, who would have that?
And they can be like $150. And they're pretty amazing. So I would rent it. And then you can either get, one that's full size for holes, or you can get a smaller one and then just drill multiple holes. So you're going to make your outline and then work all around that line, and then inside making all these multiple holes, and then just use a chisel to open it up. When you put your PVC pipe into the hole, you're going to use straps to hold it in place, and then use rope caulk to center the pipe in the hole. And that rope caulk is going to, so it's like a foam backer, and that's going to hold and support either hydraulic cement or whatever type of caulk you're going to use. If you use hydraulic cement is nice because it slightly expands, so it's going to lock it in place. If you want to use a good quality caulking, I would either use Lexel or silicone. If you have a crawl space and live in a warm climate, a ventilation system is actually very effective in reducing radon in a lot of these studies I saw. And then it also gets rid of moisture, depending on the part of the country. One of the top-rated fans was Eliminator Foundation Vent Fan. And with this, you cut a hole in the side of your house, you install the fan, and then it just puts pressure to move the gas from out of your crawl space.
Interesting.
If you have a crawl space with exposed soil, you're going to have to cover it with a 6 mil or thicker plastic sheathing, and you're going to seal all your seams. You're going to work up 12 inches on the walls or any structure that's in that, and you're going to seal it. And then under the plastic, you're going to have lengths of perforated pipe that's going to connect to a PVC T, and that T is going to connect to your vent pipe and then to your fan, and then vent the gas out of the house. And if you're going to be going into the crawl space for doing any work or maintenance, I would lay down lengths of carpet below the plastic so you can move on that.
Below the plastic?
Right. So if let's say you have your furnace in your crawl space and you have to go in there for maintenance, and rather than going across that plastic and then you're putting pressure on the soil beneath it that could have rocks or anything to potentially tear it, I would have a length of carpet going to whatever I'm performing maintenance on. And then when I'm on top of the plastic, it's going to be cushioned, it won't tear. And I would make sure I remove any construction debris, anything sharp in the crawl space before I put this plastic down. And when you turn your fan on, check all your seams for air leaks, and that plastic should pull down tight to the ground. For slab systems, you also want to make sure that you're sealing any cracks on the walls and floors. But the EPA did a bunch of experiments with different techniques, so just sealing the cracks and coating concrete to see if they could slow down or eliminate the radon coming into the house.
How'd they do?
A lot of the houses, they had zero improvement, and they were spending about $4,500 per home.
Ouch.
Some of them had as much as 50% reduction. But in homes where they use the sub-slab depressurization, so they use the venting with an exhaust vent, they had significant reductions, and in some houses as high as 99% reduction. So that's what they're recommending.
Yeah.
So most pros and organizations are recommending that you're venting this above the roof line, but I found an interesting sidewall system. So the company's called Churnland. It's TJERNLUND, and they have a Radon Vac sidewall radon mitigation system. And so this makes it very easy for a do-it-yourself radon system, and it works in a variety of home styles. It basically looks like a dryer or exhaust vent. It's pushing the air out and away from the house. So you're placing this on a side away from windows and doors and openings, so it's going to dilute in the air. But you only have to just cut right through the side of the house, and you plug it in, and it just vents right there. It's just a very easy thing to install.
Instead of the roof, the ceilings.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Some of the top-rated kits I saw at hardware or home centers was Suncourt, Fantech, it's Fantech, and Radon Away, which is one of the best names. And in the kits, you're going to get an exhaust fan, brackets, rubber couplings, and a monitor so that you know that the fan is working.
Right. How much do these cost?
Usually around $200. And then you're still going to have to buy your pipe and the additional brackets, and then depending on...
fittings.
Right. If you plan on hiring a pro, one tip I saw was specify that the work must comply with ASTM E2121.
Does that mean something?
It means something to these contractors. And what's nice is this is going to simplify the bidding, so all the bids are going to be based on the same rules and requirements.
Okay.
And then watch out for contractors that say that they're EPA listed or approved.
Why?
The EPA stopped its program in 1998. You want to search for your state radon-approved programs and their standards, and then get a detailed checklist. The EPA was saying, look up the ASHI Radon Mitigation Systems Inspection Checklist, and this is really a good outline of what your contractor should be doing. Make sure the contractor is licensed. See if your state has a state-specific radon license. Many states don't. So you want to look for certification from the National Environmental Health Association or the National Radon Safety Board. Make sure they have insurance. Get a fixed price for the job, not based on, well, we'll see what I run into.
Right.
And then get a written guarantee that the radon will be lowered to a safe range. You want detail on what the guarantee is. Get some references. Call the references and actually go and look at the work, and then get 3 to 5 bids. It's probably going to be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, and then the type of mitigation is really going to depend on the type of construction you have, the area, and then if you're looking for the best, in general, the EPA is recommending sub-slab depressurization.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
Every homeowner should be doing a radon test.
Absolutely.
You should do a short-term test first and then a long-term test.
How often should you test?
So do the short-term test, which is 2 to 3 days depending on your kit, and then do a test that's 91 days or longer. The closer to a year is better, and then it's going to give you an average of your radon exposure. After a couple of years, I would do it again just to confirm those numbers. You're shooting for a 0.4. If it's anywhere near a 4, it's dangerous and should be addressed.
Well, we watched that video where that guy had a home office in his basement.
Right, yeah, amazing.
And he did a test, and it was double what they considered high.
Yeah, scary.
And you don't know.
Yep. So if you're purchasing a home, I would see if they've done any testing, if they have recent tests, see the results. If they haven't, this is really a good test to require before you purchase.
How long do the fans last?
The pros are saying they usually last around 5 to 7 years, and that's why you want to make sure that you're looking at your monitor monthly to make sure that the fan is drawing.
So when you're checking your furnace filter, you should check your monitor?
Absolutely.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, the Google Play Music app, and iHeartRadio.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
And you can, in fact, email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com if you do a radon test. And then if you do
expect all of our listeners to email us.
Yeah, see what your levels are. I'd be very interested. And also, if you do radon mitigation, the numbers that you get afterwards. Because it's actually interesting that, more people don't talk about this.
Right.
And share. So share the podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.